Hello, today we're going to have a look at the Nuke particle system and create something like this. So let's jump into Nuke. So here we have a basic camera tracking scene already set up. And this we did together in the previous lessons. So let me just remove the particle setup so we can do that from the beginning. So here we have now just the camera tracking scene, and in 3D we have the camera and the wall plane and the ground plane and a cube, and we will add our particle system here. So first of all we need a particle, so let's press tab and type a constant and select the format to be, for example, square 256, and this is misspelled, particles. Okay, and next add a radial, type tab and radial, and connect this to the constant and look at this result. So we need to change the size here, so area x 0, y 0 and 256, 256. And we also want to set a color, so I will change the temperature to something warm like this. Okay, so now we want to emit this particle into the scene, so we will need a particle emitter. So press tab and type particle emitter and connect our particle to the particle input, and then connect this emitter to the scanline renderer. And now if you look at this result, you can see we have particles going from the origin and going upwards. So let's change the starting position to something higher up. So I will change first to a sphere so we get the ability to change the coordinates. So let's say, for example, 0.5, and change this back to none. So now it's just a point. And if you look at this in 3D and together with our scene, then it is somewhere above this box here. And next we want to change the velocity to 0. And let's look at this result. So to get this to enter the scene, we also need a gravity to make it fall down. So I will add here tab and type particle force. Particle directional force. And connect the emitter to this directional force, and this directional force to the scanline renderer. And now I will also change the particle emitter emission rate to 1 so we don't get too many particles, and the lifetime to 50 frames so it doesn't disappear immediately. So let's see what this does. So it doesn't really move yet. So let's look at our directional force and add a little negative in the y direction, 0.001 perhaps, because we are using quite a small scale. And if you look at this, then it is falling down. Okay. And look at this in the scene. Then we can see it's just falling down through the floor, and it's also quite big. So let's make it a bit smaller. So let's go to the particle emitter and change the size to, let's see. Okay, this is better. So 0.01. And now we want to make this move around a bit randomly. So I will add a particle turbulence. So tab particle turbulence and add this after the emitter. And now let's just clean up this a little bit. Okay. So let's add some turbulence in X and some in Y and some in Z. And this, we can also change the scale maybe 10 times. 10 and 10. So now we have the particle moving around, pushed by the turbulence. But you can see it follows a single path and it doesn't change in time. So we can add an offset here. So if you type equal and then here, for example, t, then we get the time in frames. So press OK. And now we have this turbulence moving in time. So this is already getting more interesting. And the next step here is to make this interact with the environment. So I will add a ParticleBounce. So press tab and then ParticleBounce. And connect our scene geometry into the geometry. So now it will interact with the scene. And I will make the bounce maybe 0.5. And let's look at this result. Okay, so now we have these particles bouncing around in the scene. And this is more or less what we had in the initial demo. And I think we don't need to wait for this to render because it's a little bit slow. So this is the basic setup to get a particle system. I hope this was helpful and see you next time. Over and out.